Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And I'm so excited. One of my favorite people, Reed Davis, is going to be on our show. He is a returning guest because everyone loved him so much and you wanted him back. And so today we're talking everything health. And Reed, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate being here, Chantel, with you and your audience and amazing people and wonderful things to do.
Well, today I want you to kind of tell people why you are a proponent of intermittent fasting and kind of maybe your journey on intermittent fasting and what you've seen as the benefits of because you work with so many clients, you do lab work on people. What have you seen that has been the best things that have come out of the intermittent fasting world?
Oh, well, almost anything that bothers you will probably be improved if you control your diet, your intake. I mean, it goes along with, you know, exercise and stuff, resting, and there's lots of things to do to get healthy. But I can't think of something that wouldn't improve if you would check your intake from time to time, kind of eat more on an ancestral basis. Our great ancestors, whoever they were, 500 generations ago, they didn't sit around and eat all day. They didn't have a kitchen to go by and pull stuff out of the fridge and a big pantry there full of all the goodies and things you love. They ate what they needed to eat on a schedule, probably tied very much to the circadian rhythm, the wake sleep cycle. And they didn't mind being hungry sometimes. Kind of part of the territory. I would ask people, when was the last time you felt hungry? I mean, really hungry, not craving, because craving's different. Matter of fact, 20 some years ago, when I first got in this business, I came out of a different field I could tell you about. But man, when I got into this, I was asking people to eat a certain way. And I had a guy call me up after just a couple of days. Hey, Reed, something's wrong. I'm like, worried. Well, what is it? And he says, there's something wrong with my stomach. What? Now I'm really getting nervous. Like I ruined this guy's life or something. He goes, I don't know, man. He goes, it just feels so empty. I started laughing. I go, brother, that's called hunger. And it just kind of proves what we talked about, the cycle that needs to be restricted in some way. So intermittent fasting, I have another one. So time restricted eating is a good way. I've seen people shed pounds, clear thinking come back. They're even a cardiopulmonary. They feel like doing more exercise because they're breathing better, and just lots and lots of things from quit consuming so often and so much and the wrong things.
Yeah. And I do want to bring up because, obviously I'm a huge proponent of intermittent fasting. Otherwise, I wouldn't have created this podcast because it's made huge impacts in my life. But one thing that I don't think people talk about is some of the downsides. And one of the downsides of fasting that can happen and keto is that it can cause problems with your poop, right? Like constipation. And some people don't realize that intermittent fasting can throw your bowel movements completely out of whack. And so some people, a possible side effect of intermittent fasting is constipation. And then other people have the opposite issue like diarrhea. And so, stool consistency and frequency of bowel movements are related to what you put in your mouth, a lot of it, right? Or what you don't put in your mouth. And so people can suffer from constipation. And I'm constantly getting emails. I think I mentioned on a couple of podcasts that I struggle with constipation. And so when people email their questions, they're constantly talking about, I'm constipated, I'm constipated. And we need to talk about that because I think people, especially when they do intermittent fasting, sometimes they don't realize like how much fiber they're getting. And fiber is really important to bulking up your stool. So kind of talk a little bit of that. Like what are you seeing when people come to you and they say, I'm really constipated or I'm going from being constipated and then diarrhea and kind of going back and forth. What is your best solution for that?
Yeah, it's always in this business in the almost quarter century now. Um, how different people are. You mentioned, I get constipated. Oh, I get the opposite. Well, neither one is normal, neither one's fun. And something's definitely out of balance and out of rhythm. And usually you can correct that. So I would say, let's take a look at what can we do. And some of that means looking at the causal factors. And so when you change your diet, if it changes your bowel habits, that's called a clue. Like, have you upset the microbiome or have you thrown your nervous system, believe it or not, out of balance? And so it's all about balance. And the first one I'll address, because we need to come back to the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Pooping is pretty parasympathetic activity. And so you need to balance. You can't be in fight flight all the time. You've got to, and believe it or not, food can contribute to balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And so there's lots of other things. But when it comes to changing your diet and the microbiome, that's equally important. So what I notice, especially with people who, let's say, cut out gluten, well, that's probably a good thing for some people to reduce the gluten actually that isn't getting properly digested. And it's also probably kicking off your immune system. And so one of the ways that works is that your microbiome starts changing. Microbiome there's supposed to be a balance between good and bad flora. If it was 80% good, 20% bad, so-called unfriendly, as long as they're not serious pathological bacteria, you're probably going to be in okay shape if you got that kind of balance. Well, the healthy flora, 80%, you got a few pounds of it living in you, millions and millions of cells. Well, guess what? If you take away the diversity of your food, you take away from the diversity of your microbiome, even the commensal good bacteria, because a lot of that bacteria feeds on the fiber and it's called prebiotic of grains. So you're eating bread or you're eating pasta and different things. Well, even your good flora can feed on that in a good way. Prebiotic is good. You're either just, remember, the problem is the gluten and and this principle applies to intermittent fasting as well when you change your diet. But I just really wanted to get across that you need those prebiotics to feed the good flora. And so when you lose them, because you're not, oh, I quit all bread. Well, what did you use? What are you adding back in to keep the prebiotics up? Inulin, and other things that would be just like eating an apple every day. There's plenty of fiber. The pectin is a great prebiotic. Um, so that's how diet can screw up your microbiome, which can screw up your bowel habits quite easily. And, you know, you need to keep your diet real diverse, even if you're limiting calories or something like that, so that you keep your microbiome real healthy. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, and I love that. I think that people can get into a real rut. I know I can, like, I get into a kick and I'm, like, eating the same thing over and over again, and keeping your diet diverse, like, one thing that I've noticed whenever I go on vacation, besides getting a bunch of vitamin D from the sun,
Yeah.
I always feel so much better, but one of the things is, because 'cause I'm always trying to find, like, healthy restaurants to eat at and that sort of thing, and I'm eating so much diverse food, and I'm feeling so much better, because I think at home, you can just go, I know I cook the same I can get into a habit of cooking the same thing, so what are some of the supplements that you do, and what do you do to kinda keep things diverse and kinda any supplements that you take that you go, "These are game changers for me for my health."
Yeah, it's such a huge area. I mean, I teach a course in functional lab work and natural protocols. And so every time somebody asks me a question, I go to this 30,000-foot view of the whole area. Because when you teach, that's what you do. There's all these things involved with supplementation. Um, and then, well, is it really supplementing a needed ingredient? Yeah, it should be. Vitamins and minerals, for instance, phytonutrients, trace elements, uh, amino acids or essential fatty acids. How about antioxidants? So all of these supplements, because you mentioned them, could be added into the mix when you know how to use them, and they're very good. I don't think food enough. Let's start with that. The food enough isn't good enough because food doesn't have enough nutrition in it anymore. It's all grown in a barren soil and things like that. Even if you're eating or organic, you're just doing that to eliminate pesticides and herbicides, which is good. But are you really getting all of the, again, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, phytonutrients, trace elements, all the stuff your body really requires to function well, to make the enzymes and everything that goes on in your body? It's quite a lot of things going on, quite an orchestration. So you need all that. You can't get it from food, so you've got to supplement. Now, with that in mind, that big view, now you talk about, well, how do I apply that to this idea of the diversity in my microbiome? Yeah, you can switch up your supplements all the time. You probably should go and try a bunch of different things, just like you try a bunch of different foods, because you want a very diverse microbiome. It's almost like the more diverse, the better. And there's certain families that we want to see a bunch of this and a bunch of that, all these different, they're called phyla, different ones in each category that all need to be in the mix. And uh, and you're right. You just said, you kind of get used to eating the same thing, and that diversity goes down. I have to enter here, Chantel, that we have a test for foods that we do. 176 foods, or it tests for your sensitivities. Are any of those foods kind of upsetting the apple cart in any way, causing any kind of inflammation or reaction or anything? But no one eats 176 foods. It's just so we could cover so many different diets. Heck, people go through that list of 176 foods and they don't eat 150 of them. Yeah, so it's kind of really interesting how that works. And so we keep telling them, well, look, you tested sensitive to this, and this, whether you eat it or not. You don't have to challenge this test. But look at all the things you weren't reactive to. So now you open up this whole world of diversity in a way that's very meaningful to me, which is diet. I love to travel. I love to try different foods. If I'm at a restaurant, I never had that before. Oh, give me some. I want to see what that does. And you learn to enjoy these different tastes and flavors, and you get the satisfaction of eating. Um, diverse foods. And so therefore there would be diverse supplementation as well. And everyone has their favorites. I don't want to mention too much, but um I'll just say that the other side of this that you can't get from supplements, because again, you can get extra vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, you name it, these different little things. They're called micronutrients. And boy, do you need them. You want to function really good, have good skin, have good energy on a cellular level. You need to have all those things as much and diverse as you can. But the other key, and this does it, whether you're doing time restricted eating or intermittent fasting, whatever we sort of want to call it, we can talk about the differences, but it's the macronutrient ratios. So we talked about your micronutrients. They're kind of missing from food a lot, so you take them supplementally. The protein, fat, and carbs, that ratio is so critical, Chantel, and I have never seen so much misinformation. Hate that word. It's been ruined. But I hate to see it, the misinformation on macronutrient ratios, because it's devastating. It's gotten worse than ever.
Well, let's talk about that. So talk about what is the right ratios and how, you know, how particular should people be on it? Kind of make it where, like, let's talk about what you do for, regarding your fats, carbs, and proteins, and figuring out, okay, what are the right ratios, and figuring out how strict you want to be with that. Otherwise you kind of go crazy. You know what I mean? Too.
Yes, you could drive yourself absolutely nuts. And so just remember, basically, there's micronutrients, all those little things, and then there's macronutrients and ratios involved. So if everyone followed the standard sort of paleo diet of today, three things can happen. You feel better, you feel nothing, you feel worse. That's it. Just okay, go, well, good luck. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Well, can we not depend on luck? I mean, especially if you're in the business, you can't leave it to luck. That's why people come to you, is that luck isn't working for them. And so we have a little test. It's at um, mtdiet.com. It stands for metabolic typing. So mtdiet.com. That's just a good place where people go and look it over, kind of get tested. But the test you could do on yourself, and everybody could do this, is they would start with a meal and start playing with those ratios. And it'd be a good thing for you to sort of write down what you've been eating the last few meals, and what you think the ratio is: more protein, more fat, more carbohydrates, or some meals like all carbohydrates. It's never good, fat. And it's how it looks on your plate that matters. So this is really simple. So the ratio, like a pie chart, this much protein, this much fat, this much carb. And a lot of your protein obviously has the fat in it. Because if you take a big piece of meat, well, there's your protein and your fat. And you look at a side of mixed vegetables, well, there's your carbohydrates. They're a complex, high quality carbohydrate. And you pretty much, for a while, would want to eliminate your simple carbohydrates. Like, again, with those comments I made about diversity in mind, probably keep the starchy things out of your diet for a little while. The breads and pastas and that kind of stuff, because they're very low quality. Um,
So
uh,
if you were going to give somebody, what the amount, what percentage that you would give them for the proteins, fats, and carbs, what would you think is the best one for weight loss? Approximately.
yeah, well, the lower carbs diet seem to work really well for a lot of people. But I have to give you, remember, I just can't come up with a really simple answer that sounds cheap to me. So here's the deal. People have these different types. They could be a protein type, a carb type, or kind of somewhere in the middle. And you'd want to know that. So you'd have a starting place. Like the reason that paleo diet works so good for some people is because they're pretty fast oxidizers. They burn energy, this fuel on a cellular level, real fast. So they're fast oxidizers. Classic fast oxidizers. Everyone always says, oh, the Eskimo. Yeah, they are. They're on a cellular level, the way they're designed, their genetic makeup, their innate intelligence in their cells that runs everything says, I need to burn slow burning fuel because I burn it so fast. And you could think of it. So what is slow burning fuel? Fat and protein, especially fat. That burns the slowest of all the three fuels: protein, fat, and carb. If you can get that fuel, I just want to tell you, if you can get that fuel mixture just right, you'll have lots of energy. You won't have any cravings. You'll have a sense of well-being, a good mood, sort of a thing going on. And you'll feel completely satisfied, like nothing's missing, if you get the ratios right. So let's start there. Now, if I started everybody on, oh, try more fat and protein, it would work for some, not do much for others, and make some people feel worse. Matter of fact, that's how I started 24 years ago, was with the Atkins diet. It worked great for me because I'm a fast oxidizer. But man, I had other people in the office try it. I have no energy. I can't, everything sucks. Can't, because they were eating the wrong fuel mixture for them. So believe it or not, there are slow oxidizers. We're not all fast oxidizers. Again, if you're a fast oxidizer, you got to burn slow burning fuel, big logs on that fire. slow burning. If you put paper on a bonfire, a big, what happens? It's gone. Like that's what happens to people like Eskimos and Native Americans and people like me was a caveman at some point in my history. I know that. You give us a lot of carbs, we burn it up so quick. We have no energy. We don't feel satisfied. We're craving, and we get mental fogginess, even blood sugar levels crazy. Again, we're craving, and we don't even feel. You get in bad mood. You get hangry all the time, even if you just ate. Imagine giving a Cree Indian um, who live on the plains of northern Canada, just below the Eskimos. Imagine giving them a bowl of fruit salad. They would it would like taste good. They'd love it. Oh man, this fruit's amazing stuff. And they'd eat it, but man, in an hour they'd be freaking starving because they burned up it so quickly. And by the way, they would be craving more. And then, of course, the change in their blood sugar levels and their triglycerides and fat storage and ghrelin and leptin and these other hormones involved they'd be hungry all the time. They'd overeat. And guess what happens to Cree Indian villages in northern Canada?
Mm.
They're all going to the government, uh, clinics for diabetes. It's rampant, the obesity and diabetes. But in people who were perfectly healthy before this crappy diet came along. So I know I'm giving you a lot, but it all follows a common theme. Believe me, on eating right for your type, for your fast oxidizer, slow oxidizer, or somewhere in between. And you can adjust it, the percentages, you adjust it by the percentages of protein, fat, and carbs on the plate. Don't count calories, just look on the plate. And you'll start to know, oh man, this is going to be a good meal, very satisfying. I'm going to be totally satiated, satisfaction, satiation. Not only that, but I'm going to have good energy. It's going to get me through to the next fuel stop. I'll be able to work. I'll be able to work out. I can do all this cool stuff, think clearly and stuff. Um, so the first one was satiation. The second one was energy. And the third thing, again, believe it or not, it's that I call it sense of well-being. And it shouldn't be too hard to grasp. Are you cranky for no reason? Are you just feeling out of sorts? It's just like, oh man, and it could be the meal. You just aren't producing energy because you aren't giving your cells the right fuel mixture. And that energy is on a cellular level. And believe me, it affects everything in your body, every function in your body. Every function on your body depends upon cellular health. And so, there's a little bit about how you pick protein, fat, and carbs. I get lost because it's so exciting and it's so interesting how that works. But I know these things to be true from just experience in helping people.
At some point, we've all been sold a lie, and let me tell you why. In the 80s, we all believed more protein equals more muscle growth. Well, it could be a lie, and let me tell you why. Because if you eat 8 ounces of chicken breast, then you're consuming about 40 grams of protein. But just because something contains 40 grams of protein, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to absorb all 40 grams of protein. Because without enzymes, guess what? It could end up all in your toilet bowl because your small intestines can only absorb protein that's been broken down into smaller building blocks called amino acids. So it doesn't matter if you're consuming 30 grams of protein or 300 grams of protein. If you don't have the sufficient supply of enzymes to digest the protein, then guess what? You're going to be starving for those vital building blocks. So it's really important that you take a high quality enzyme. So before you run out and just buy anything, guess what? I love Masszymes by Bioptimizers because it has 5 different kinds of proteins. And that's what you need, all 5 of them. So go to masszymes.com/wasteaway and use the coupon code wasteaway10 and you'll get 10% off. Well, I feel the best when I am on a paleo diet. I definitely feel that way. If I eat a paleo diet, that is how I feel the best. But I wouldn't say that's the way that I'm the most satiated. So it, I would, when I'm done eating a paleo diet, I feel great. I'm ready to go, but I'm not like, sometimes I finish that meal depending on what I eat, and I'm not completely satiated. But it is definitely how I feel the best.
You're onto something. Because well, satiation is part of part of feeling good too. So it could be that you need it to add in, and you can play with this, Chantel. You could add in a little bit of a starchy, just one little piece of potato sometimes. My wife and I play this game all the time because she's more of a slow oxidizer. Originally, she's from a very small island off the coast of Venezuela, although she lived over half her life in England. And so she just got this sort of um, different type of metabolism than me. So she has to add onto her plate, just give me the meat and vegetables. But she has to add in a few more things, or she doesn't get that sense of satiation and satisfaction. So here's the analogy. Let but you could be, remember, there's fast oxidizer, slow oxidizer, and somewhere in between. Therefore, there is a radio dial. And even if you're a fast oxidizer, within fast oxidizer, you can still have to dial it in a little bit. Chantel, don't date yourself now, but do you remember the radios that you used to have to turn the knob to get it to sound right? And so you would just sort of um, dial it in, and it would sound better and better. And then you had it right. You go, oh, that sounds the best right there. What does everyone do? They go past it a little bit just to double check, and then back to where it sounded the best. So we call that dialing it in, like a radio dial. And it's the same thing with your carb, fat, and protein ratios. I know I'm a fast oxidizer, and there's other things to know about your genetics, but fast oxidizer is a pretty good place to start. So I know I'm going to always, always, always be eating more protein and fat and less carbs. It's way over half protein and fat. And sometimes, and for some people, it's 80%, 85%. And so I've never met anyone that could only live healthy on just meat. You got to throw something else in there um, for different reasons, including the micronutrients. You can't get those all from supplements, but you can get that rate of oxidation, the oxidative rate, met by dialing in the protein, fat, and carb. So if you're not getting all three things, can't be just you feel more energy. That's fantastic. You feel like, oh, now I can go do my thing. You also
I want to stop you because I want to make sure that listeners understand, and I will tell you what I think. What if someone's a slow oxidizer or a fast oxidizer? I will explain in my words what I think it is, and then you correct me. But your metabolism of like carbs, proteins, and fat into energy is referred to as oxidation. And so the rate at which, your nutrients are converted into energy within all of your body cells. So if your oxidation occurs too slowly or too fast, maybe your energy production could be like impaired. So you want to just try to get your oxidation rate, you know, the best for you. And so I wanted you to kind of explain kind of what is a kind of the telltale sign of someone who's a slow oxidizer. What's the telltale signs of someone who's a fat oxidizer? Did I kind of explain that
perfect. First of
right?
all,
Or
yeah, perfect. And we covered a little bit of the answer in the just the 2 hours after you eat. Satiation, you can grade it. We have these little forms we use to grade it. Tell us what you ate for breakfast. 2 hours later, tell us what's your energy like. Is it strong or is it nervous energy? With tiredness underneath. What's your sense of satiation? Are you craving? You feel like something was missing, and you tend to feel that way a little bit, I think. And then, of course, the sense of well being is a little tougher because some people just me, I'm always in a good mood. I don't know why. I think eating right is part of it, but I just always pretty happy. Other people never seem to be happy. So it's harder for some people than others just to gauge their sense of well being. But it's doable. But just consider, so 2 hours, that's the telltale sign. Now, if that goes on year after year after year, you're never really satiated, you're craving, don't have enough energy, and you just feel less energy, and the same thing's going on inside your cells. There's less energy, feel less, and then that sense of well-being. Well, after years, guess how you feel and look? It's called crappy. I think that's the medical diagnosis term. So yeah, with the telltale signs are people show up out of sorts, out of shape, and out of their mind, trying to figure it all out. I had a lady really early on when I first started using the MT diet, and I just changed her diet. I said, "Hey, tomorrow morning for breakfast, try this." I mean, I wasn't even doing intermittent fast. I should have had her skip breakfast, but this person, but I put her on, just said more protein and fat. And the next time she was in the office, she said, "I can't even believe it. I can't believe how different I feel switching from toast and jam to some bacon and eggs, ham, whatever it was." She just couldn't even believe the difference in her energy and her outlook on life. And then of course she felt more like exercising. She starts trimming up her weight. She had lots of other problems. She was on medication. There's lots of things going on with that lady. But just getting the macronutrient ratios right was changing her life. It was an early sign that, hey, look, you can take control. You can be responsible. You can make some changes here. And everything else kind of goes, it flows out of that. It's one of the most controllable epigenetic factors we have is diet.
Mm.
So you did beautiful, by the way. You
So what is the foods? So if you had somebody who was um a slow oxidizer, what foods are recommended for slow oxidizers? What foods are recommended for fast oxidizers?
You know me, I gotta always zoom out and zoom in. So I'm gonna zoom out for just a second and say, look, the answer is it depends, but there's no one food that's right for everybody. And we do a lot of food sensitivity testing up front too. But there's no one food that's right for everyone. There's just bad foods for everyone. There's foods that just no one can do well on. A lot of these fake oils, the hydrogenated things that are in everything, um, and on sugar and on um, things like that. So there's some bad foods for everyone. Having said that, we could go into a slow oxidizer and say, organic, fresh, combination of fresh and cooked vegetables and things. Some fruits, the slow oxidizers can eat more fruits than a fast oxidizer. I pretty much don't eat any. I eat some. I like the antioxidants and the micronutrients I get, the minerals and things, but I do just so much better without that. So, anyways, you're slow. You're definitely going to eat more high quality complex carbs. And again, I always do the food sensitivity testing because there's some trickiness around that.
So
You,
I want to ask you about that because for me, I got on this kick where I was like, I'm going to test. I wanted to try a bunch of different food sensitivity tests, and so I did 3 different ones. And what's funny is, and I did it pretty close together. Like maybe I did one a couple weeks later, did another, waited a couple weeks, took another, and they were all kind of the top ones that people say that are
yep.
good for food sensitivity. And all 3 of them said just the most random things that I was sensitive to. All 3 said I was allergic to egg whites.
Hmm.
All 3 said I was allergic to cow's milk. Um, but besides that, the rest of the food sensitivities were a lot of things that I eat all the time, like blueberries. One said romaine lettuce. Like, I mean, I eat romaine lettuce like every day.
Mhm.
Um, you know, blueberries was another one. I'm trying to think at some of the other, but they were so random and they were things like test 1 said these, 10 things, test 2 said these 10 things, but the only things that were the same was and none of them said gluten. None of them said gluten, and I feel horrible when I have gluten, but yet none of them said I was allergic to gluten, and they said, like, "I feel fine when I eat blueberries. I don't feel bad when I eat eggs in general." So that's what would you say if someone told you that? Like, they took 3 different food sensitivity tests,
Mhm.
they all said 3 different things. What would your response be to that?
Well, that's how testing goes sometimes. I've been running labs for 24 years since I started at a wellness center in Southern California. And all I wanted to do, I wasn't even, I had no health problems of my own. I just wanted to help people in a new way from what I'd been doing. And so I studied labs and, you know, there's more than three, there's at least 10 food sensitivity tests because there's different ways to measure that sensitivity. IgA, IgM, IgE. There's different ways your immune system can respond. So the real question, now, by the way, I use mostly what's called the mediator release test. It's an even different way of looking at food sensitivities. So by the way, we're not talking about allergies. Those are IgE mediated, and they are true allergies. And you'd know if you have an IgE reaction. So we're going to put allergies aside and just talk about different types of sensitivities and testing for that. And I've landed on this one, the mediator release test, because it seems to give the least amount of false positives, so to speak. But here's the real question: can you have a sensitivity on a test that isn't really doing much harm in your body? Yes. You can have show sensitive for this and that, and it could be just such a teeny tiny little part of the chaos going on in your body that when you remove it, you don't feel any different eating it or not different eating it. So you have to sort of just eliminate them all, whatever it says, eliminate them for 3 months. And the ones you really miss, like if you really miss something, you can start to add it back in because the antibodies within 3 months should have died down quite a bit. Even this mediated release test starts to change the way it responds, and so you would just have to. That's the problem with it is you gotta eliminate them, and then again, if you feel fantastic, oh my God. I've had people whose migraines went away, their asthma went away, their ADD, their kid. I've changed lives so much. I had a principal of a school once call me and say, "Hey, what'd you put Billy on? We want some of that." And like, because his whole behavior changed at school. It wasn't what I put him on; it's what I got him off of. We put him on a good diet that works for him and a better sleep schedule and some other things, some more nutrition. But so it with those different types of tests, pick one, get off those foods, and only enter and see how you feel basically. And it's not just how you feel. There's ways to measure the reactions, like antibodies and inflammatory markers and the microbiome. And there's lots of ways to you can track objectively, but even just how you feel really matters. If you feel freaking great not eating these things, I'm telling you, I had people who were, I remember a lady, she called me on a referral. You help my friend. Can you help me? I'm 5 days a week in a dark room with a pillow over my head because of pain from migraines, and nothing helps me. No medication. We ran a couple libs, got her off some stuff, and within 3 weeks, she was barely having what she called regular headaches. And so I just wanted to, again, that principal called me. What'd you put Billy on? No, we just tested him. We got him off some stuff, and now he's a well-behaved young man. 9 years old. They wanted to put this kid on drugs, by the way. So, and others, kids that were having asthma attacks, couldn't play sports, got them back on the team. I coached football for a long time, so that was important. Why? Because we eliminated irritants, or what I just call contributors to metabolic chaos. So you asked a great question: which test? What should I do? Yeah, you need guidance on the elimination and the possible reintroduction. You need to pay attention to how you feel. You need to change course along the way. Imagine that you just ran that test and got off these foods that are contributing to your migraines and your asthma and your ADD, not to mention skin conditions. Oh my God, I've had amazing things going on with the hives and other things. So imagine doing that. And now you also are going to eat the right amount of protein, fat, and carb. And let's circle all the way back to where we started and say, what if you just ate the, at the right time of day, the right amount? Oh my God. You just took diet and made it a super weapon towards health and longevity and looking and feeling really good.
Mm. Well, I have a question that I'm going to read. It's a little confusing and I don't know that I understand it. I've read it a couple times, but I'll read it again. It's from a girl named Janine Rockwell. She says, "Hello, I started intermittent fasting December 22nd. I have done clean fast eating. I've done a clean fast and only eat in eating window for 6 hours. Then I changed it to up and down days where I clean fast for 36 hours, usually eating 500 calories around hour 24, then nothing until hour 36. I'm not seeing results with my measurements and honesty pants, but I think the total on the scale since December is 8 pounds lost. On my up days, I don't limit what I eat. I eat what I want within reason. I don't eat junk food, but sometimes will crave a little sugar, but it's not not in the house very often. I do work out often, but never intense, but do row, bike, or do weights. What am I doing wrong?" So the question,
Yeah,
I
it's
couldn't totally understand what she was saying, but I think the gist of it is, hey, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Um, what would you say is some things that people would you say, like, if they're not losing weight and they feel like they're, doing intermittent fasting, eating healthy within reason, but they're saying the scale's not moving as fast as I want to. What would you say, like, here's some of the top things that you see? Hey, what would be the questions you would be asking of what you would say that they're doing wrong?
Well, first of all, congratulations. You started December 22nd, and nobody starts a diet December 22nd.
That's right. That's right. That's a good point.
But good for you for wanting it and for starting to use a different approach, like watching what you eat. But I think a more systematized and disciplined approach would be better for this person because they just what the symptom, the different things they mention, it's kind of random. So um again, I mean that emptydiet.com is a good place to start. It'll give you your oxidative rate. And there's another factor we haven't even talked about. We just can't go into it all in one show, but balancing your nervous system. Remember I mentioned the sympathetic, parasympathetic. Believe it or not, food can strengthen one side. For you, if you're a sympathetic dominant, like my wife, you need to strengthen the parasympathetic, so you can have more diversity and go poop better. Well, for me, I'm already parasympathetic dominant, like so much so I have to you get the balance in there and stimulate the sympathetic side. Believe it or not, we're like the tortoise and the hare. I'm the tortoise and she's the hare. There's no question about it. People are different, but they can live in harmony. I swear. I keep telling her because we just have to work this thing out with what we're eating. More of this on your plate, less on my plate of that thing. And vice versa. So this person needs something more systematized. They need some objective markers, and even the subjective need to be looked at more closely. Again, that satiation hunger satisfaction, satiation, the energy and the sense of well-being. Just think about that. And when you're putting that food on your plate, pay attention and pay attention to the macronutrient ratios. Always a good place to start. And really eat that way for a couple of days and see how you're doing. Satiation, energy, and sense of well-being, and start adjusting. I would probably up the protein and fat a little bit. And if it moves you in the right, remember you're going to dial it in. Now, if you feel, hey, I feel more energy, more satisfaction, and I'm not sure I got the sense of well-being thing. I'm still a little cranky, without a good reason. Um, you can be cranky if you have a good reason. But then try adjusting it a little bit more. And if you get it just right, you'll know it. You'll know that this is working for you. It really is amazing. And if you go past too far, too much protein or fat for your oxidative rate, you can certainly, well, I'm going to add it back in. I feel better when I have, a little more of the vegetation, or even a piece of fruit or piece of starch, or one small piece of potato or something like that. You can throw in a little bit. Besides, that's really good for your microbiome too. And so I don't know if I completely bungled that or helped this person, but I'd want to know.
I wanna just kind of tell people who don't understand what that is. So your sympathetic nervous system is best known for like if you are like getting chased by a lion, right?
Right, yeah.
Stressful situations. So like for me, like if I'm at work, I'm in a sympathetic state. And in an ideal world, like we would only eat when we're in a parasympathetic state. And if we're eating in a sympathetic state when we're in that, fight or flight, response is engaged, then what happens is your digestion, your absorption, your elimination is compromised. And then we're not able to utilize our nutrition, like our nutrients effectively. And so that I know that is my problem because especially like at work, I'm always in a fight or flight. Like it's always like, oh, we got this, boom, 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 fast, fast, let's go, boom, boom, boom. And then it's like, okay, let's go eat lunch. And now I'm like, and now I'm eating too fast and all the other craziness that goes on with me. But that's why for me, when I do really well where I'm eating my main meal at night, where I'm not at work, I'm more in a calmer state, I'm more relaxed. And that's when my digestion's going to be better, my absorption's going to be better, everything is going to be better. But that's surprising. I mean, because you've got a lot on your plate too. And so you're saying that you just in general, you would say that you are naturally live in a more parasympathetic state. Would you say that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And people are kind of born that way. And it's very genetically handed down. You know, I came from people who um would go 2, 3 days without eating till they killed something and they'd cook it, clean it, cook it, eat it, and then they would do nothing for another 2 or 3 days. They just lived on that whole just satiation and parasympathetic. You would rest and digest. You'd
Mhm.
rest and digest, rest and digest. And so when you did get sympathetic dominant, it was because you're out there and you skinned your knee on a rock, or you say were too tiger scared you, or you're in the excitement of the hunt, and these kind of things. So it doesn't mean you're never sympathetic, but you naturally return. I just naturally return to parasympathetic. No, it's just my nature. I'm a guy that doesn't get scared much. I can control my heart rate much easier than other people, and I mean, if it's bar fight time, you know, you probably want to have me around because I'm going to be calm and cool, collected, and try to settle it. And um, I'm not going to go, oh my God, bar fight. Run, the house is on fire. Just some people just lean more that way, and they're always looking around and nervous and just stuff, and they don't even know why. A lot of times it's because they're not. If they would just eat differently, boost up the parasympathetic, breathe differently, um, do some, just invoke that parasympathetic more, rest and digest. Just think rest and digest. We were meant to smell our food. I still get turned on smelling good food. It's like, wow, what a warm and wonderful feeling it gives, because it puts me in my natural parasympathetic state. And your juices start flowing, your saliva, and you're able to chew your food. And I won't explain how digestion works, but you get the point. And it's from one end all the way through to the other. It's a very rest and digest, parasympathetic thing to do. So if you're eating a burger in the car, it's just it would never work for me for sure. I don't allow eating in my car, but I wouldn't eat standing up either.
Mm. Well, we are out of time, but I
Oh
want to
no, we
talk
just
to
got started.
people. I know I could talk to you forever, but I want you to talk to people about how they can get involved with your functional health certification. And, a lot of you guys have been listening to this podcast. You guys are so advanced. And, you've tried to kind of solve some of your complex issues. And you've been listening and you go, I'm passionate about kind of training other people. So I want you to talk about what you do with FDN training and how people can learn more about being a FDN practitioner.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm not here to sell anything, but I'll just tell you that I got into to not for my own health, but just to help others, but face the same challenges that anyone listening to this is facing or knows someone who's facing it. Like everybody coming in our office, Chantel, was unhappy. They were searching desperately for an alternative. We were a alternative wellness center, 1999, a long time ago. And I saw how people struggled. And, I put it to mind that I would be the last person they needed to see. I didn't know how, but I ran labs, thousands of labs on thousands of people for 10 years before I ever taught anything except to our patients and my clients. And so I figured a few things out in 10 years. I had great mentorship and lots of education and courses, but man, working face to face with people I would say I worked really hard, except for it was all quite joyful, labor of love and passion. And finally, after 10 years, I was asked to teach. So I just wanted to put that, I don't teach what I learned in a workshop a month ago from someone else or a year ago. I teach what I learned of 10 long years in the clinic, helping Mr. Jones and Mrs. Smith, face to face, running labs and figuring out what protocol, what diet and rest and exercise and stress reduction and supplementation would help this person customize we call it DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. That's how you help someone fix themselves. Obviously, we run all the labs first, and the course includes all the labs, everything you need to know. But it's that DRESS that is what people apply to themselves, and we teach how to do it. I can teach everything I learned in 10 years, in 10 months, and everything I've learned since too. But you would go to fdntraining.com/waste away, which is named after you, waste away, and you get that free Dress for Health Success guidebook. So there's a guidebook on this Dress for Health Success. And that's where I tell people to go, just go get a free book on diet, which we've been talking all about, but it also talks about rest and exercise and stress reduction. You've heard that word stress before, Chantel? So when you live it's ubiquitous. But if you don't recognize whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, and old traumas, and then the chemical, biochemical stuff, then you're not systematized. So I systematized it. And that's our strength. So go get Dressed for Health Success at fdntraining.com/wasteaway. That's fdntraining.com/wasteaway.
Love it. Well, you guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Reed, for coming back on. And you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.